You know, you're also an empowerment life coach.
Yes.
Describe that work. What does an empowerment life coach do?
I basically lead people back to who they are. Help them in understanding their own power, their own light, we could say. But more than anything is just to facilitate them on through a journey of self-discovery, self-reflection, of course, the deeper healing of what can be some of the wounds and challenges. And we've all got a story,
Yes.
and helping them to really recreate the story for their life. And as they begin to do that, feeling more in tune with their own inner truth and being able to express and experience life in a whole new and beautiful way.
That's fantastic. That really is. So what would be an example, some examples of the work? Is there maybe like a success story? You don't have to mention any names, but
Yes.
something that comes to mind. You probably have a list of
I do.
scenarios where
Yes.
that work was applied and it really helped take a person from point A to point B
Yeah.
in such a positive way in their life.
Yeah. Well, I am an example
are an
of that.
example of
I'm an
that.
example of what is possible, and what I want to say is a way of being able to really become our own miracles. And not only that, you know, working with people over these years, I've worked with a lot of people who are in crises. They're in mental, emotional crises. Success stories, you know, vary and are. I mean, I have many of them. One client in particular had been in such a state where she had seen her doctor and had asked for more prescription for her antidepressants. She was already maxed out on dosage. There wasn't anything more that the doctor could do. Had appointment and actually wanted her to begin to see a psychiatrist for her problems. And she looked at, alternatively, turned to me and said, "Can you help?" She didn't want to go that route. And through a progression of healing, the conversations, and really helping her to become more self-aware within her power of choice, she was able to actually, within probably 8 to 12 months, almost completely quit taking her antidepressant. She was on the most minor or minimal dosage that became possible. And so with that, she began obviously experiencing more joy and well-being in her life as a result. I deal with a lot of people who come to me who are at the point of where they're having suicidal thoughts. They've been in times in their life where they just didn't see any other alternative, and so they turned to me as the alternative, and I'm able to help them to really, again, move past the very helpless or hopeless state that they are in and reclaim their life again. And so it really is interesting how the universe works, because basically I am working with people with the same storylines, the same scenarios that I myself had to heal and move through.
So you
and
identify with it.
Right, I can really relate to it. I can help speak to it based on my own experiences, and then of course, basically, I always refer to becoming their soul friend as we navigate and move through the healing together.
Now, some people may have heard of talk therapy. Is any of this involved talk therapy, or is this different from talk therapy, and what would the differences be?
Yeah, well, talk therapy is definitely incorporated within the work I do, simply because we need to be able to tell someone about what has happened, and being able to give words to the pain, to tell the stories. I know for myself, the stories that I held through experiences I never spoke of. I never told anyone. And so to be able to, as even I move through my own healing journey, to be able to give voice to that was powerful. So that is definitely a part of the process. I also do, you know, energy work or energy medicine as well. And so through many different trainings or modalities, begin to kind of follow what would be in someone's best, or their, you know, in sharing what are some of the energy healing. Obviously, people need to be open and willing to receive what's available. But, you know, through talk therapy becomes very powerful, but we add in the aspect of energy healing into it, and it really begins to be very transformative. The other key within it, I think that what sets maybe the work I do maybe apart or different than other people, is I use my connection to the other side. I use the connection to their guides to receive what would be a very personalized approach or guidance that is specific for the individual, and that really makes a big and powerful difference. I might think I know what someone needs, but when I open up and I receive the guidance on their behalf, it begins to really speak to what their heart needs the most. Getting the mind working for us, right? So we begin to work at really kind of nurturing our thoughtfulness, our being in the present moment, really looking and beginning to think affirmatively for our lives. That begins to take resonance, energetic resonance, and our body begins to regain some vitality as well. But through that, we begin to really look at the fact that this body is a temple, and we need to be caring for this body that we've been given, whether that be through exercise, nutrition, whether that, even hydration is a way of caring for our body. So it does become a very, the work I do is very self-oriented, not from an egotistical, but really taking care of our physical needs as well as the needs of our mind and feeding our mind with things that are healthy. And then there's the spirit side of things where, again, this is about knowing who we are at our spiritual core. We've heard many times that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And so we need to nurture that spirit self. That's in whatever way or means really resonates in terms of what is someone's ultimately, what is more their truth. And spiritual practices can be anything from meditation to prayerfulness, can be, sitting, even taking in circles with people, who are doing healing work, etc. But having a spiritual connection, but basically to the spirit that exists inside of ourselves. I like to take the whole mind, body, spirit approach, and I like turn it on its wheel or on its axis, and I approach everything from the spirit first. Because when we nurture the spirit, it's easy for our thoughts to be positive and to be optimistic. And our body responds in kind to that as well, because now the spirit feeds the mind and the mind feeds the body, and it begins to work in cohesiveness that can really begin to bring about that transformation that we're all seeking. And in what we could say ultimately in finding some state of happiness. Suicide is on the rise. Of course, we know, as you said, these last few years, mental health is in crises.
All age groups, demographics,
absolutely.
genders, everything.
So people that are coming to me and not only, suffering within the conditioning of that, but also in terms of having been abused. So the women who have been betrayed, or even those who have betrayed other people. So it's not just those who have been wounded, but also people who have wounded others.
They're feeling the guilt.
They're feeling the shame of their actions and what they're carrying. I work with a lot of individuals who are in what I want to say, especially as empaths, which are prone to being in relationships with narcissists, where again they're losing a sense of themselves, of their own, as I said, their intricate value, or knowing that they deserve, something more or something beyond what they've been living. I work with a lot of people who are at are experiencing what would be a critical time in their life, which means perhaps a loss of a relationship, and a loss of a relationship can be through divorce, but it can also be the loss of their loved one.
Yeah.
Right? The loss of their livelihood, even people who have lost their careers, and people who are looking to make change in their careers as well. Most I would say a vast majority of people are seeking that connection, as I said earlier, to who they are, that deeper spiritual sense, and looking for something more of purpose or meaning in their life. And why do I love doing it? I love doing it because of what takes place for people, where they begin to find joy again in their life, the well-being of, within emotionally, mentally, even physically. I love watching the transformation and knowing, I'm not the one responsible for this.
You're the conduit,
I'm the
facilitator.
conduit. I'm the facilitator. And to see that transformational change and have them step into their life in a way that they're thriving for the first time, and maybe even in their life, is what it's all about for me.